All right, my friends, I've got a special video for you today because I'm going to be talking about and reviewing this brand new box set from Severin Films, the boutique label Severin Films. This is a Blu-ray box set of 4 Italian Gothic films. This set is called DANZA MACABRA Volume 1. It is the Italian Gothic Collection, and I was very excited when they announced this because I'm actually a huge fan of Gothic horror. I really like Italian horror from like the 70s and 80s particularly. This is 4 movies that are from the 1960s and 70s. I love Hammer films. I love Universal Monsters. I kind of dig some Mario Bava too. So I thought this might be up my alley. And this set ended up being a little bit of a mixed bag for me, but I'm overall happy with it. But before I go any further, let's go ahead and dig into this thing. When I say box set, I really mean it because this is truly a box. This is how most of Severin's box sets end up being. And they have each movie in its own individual Blu-ray case, which is something I really like. I mean, sometimes I kind of miss the fact that there's no booklets in this set. There's no additional artwork or art cards or anything like that, but you do get the artwork on every single Blu-ray case. So let's go ahead and open those up. So to show you all of the movies, we've got Lady Frankenstein, Scream of the Demon Lover, The Monster of the Opera, and finally, The Seventh Grave. Now, I had never seen any of these movies prior to getting this set. I was familiar with Lady Frankenstein. It's a kind of iconic cult horror movie. Scream of the Demon Lover, I actually have a trailer for this on my Halloween playlist on Spotify, because the trailer's on Spotify, probably some kind of public domain thing, and I never even heard of either of these movies. But I watched them all because I really wanted to talk to you about the movies. I did not just want to show you what the actual display is like, what the case is like. I want to tell you, are these movies actually worth picking up and watching? So without further ado, let's dig into each and every one. I'm going to kick off with what I think is the marquee title of the bunch, and that is Lady Frankenstein. Now, this movie is from 1971. You can watch it dubbed in English or dubbed in Italian. That's how most Italian horror movies from this period were. They were filmed without sound and then dubbed over in multiple languages and sent around the world. I watched this in English because I tend to really enjoy dubbed Italian horror or Spanish horror from this particular period. But it's by far got the biggest actor of any of these movies. It's got Joseph Cotten as Dr. Frankenstein. Joseph Cotten is a pretty iconic, classic Hollywood actor. He's in Alfred Hitchcock's Shadow of a Doubt. He's in The Third Man. He's in some pretty big stuff. And here he is as Dr. Frankenstein. This movie felt, for a long time especially, felt very much like a Hammer Frankenstein movie. It felt very much like they saw the success of the Hammer Frankenstein movies and thought, oh, we're just going to do that. And man, what a turnaround I had with this movie, because I was not into it for 40 minutes. For 40 minutes, it's very much a copy, cut and paste of Hammer Frankenstein movies. I did not like Joseph Cotten as Dr. Frankenstein at all, and I found every scene pretty boring. There's no interesting dialogue. They're not doing anything different or interesting with the formula. And then 40 minutes in, they revive the monster and something happens, something I was not expecting. And I thought, oh, we're going down a different path. Like something, this thing is getting shaken up. And it did very much get shaken up. And I ended up being really happy with this movie. I loved it from that 40-minute mark till the end. It ended up being very unique. I love the actress who plays Lady Frankenstein. This is not a Bride of Frankenstein situation. She is one of the mad scientists of the movie, and she was fantastic. Very much a sexy seductress, but also this scientist who's obsessed with creating monsters. Because what this movie kind of is Dr. Frankenstein creates a monster, and then Lady Frankenstein needs to create another creature to defeat that monster, because that monster is just running around killing people. You can see the monster right here, and he looks pretty goofy looking. There's a lot of prosthetics and makeup on him. He's got one eye like bulging out that's clearly fake. I enjoyed it. I was just a fan of campy, kitschy horror. That was something that I really enjoyed about this movie. It's pretty sleazy in addition to the horror elements, and it's got one of the sickest murder scenes I feel like I've ever seen. Not in terms of gore or anything like that, but in terms of what's going on as the person's getting murdered. It's pretty sick. And I really like this movie. I will absolutely revisit it. And I'm wondering if those first 40 minutes will be better now that I know what's coming after that. So that'll be interesting to see. Next up is my personal favorite movie from the box, and that is Scream of the Demon Lover. Let me read you this quote on the back of the Blu-ray, and it's from The Spinning Image, and it says, "Irresistibly groovy 70s Euro horror. It blends Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and Jane Eyre into a heady brew that's either classically gothic or hopelessly kitsch." And when I read that, I got really excited for this movie. The Jane Eyre aspects is that a woman is hired to come work in a gothic mansion that has this brooding but handsome lord who rules over it. And she's a biochemist, which is pretty interesting to have a biochemist in this period piece. It's very much another Hammer horror kind of period movie. And she comes to help him with his experiments. He's doing some kind of Frankenstein-like elements. Meanwhile, he's kind of a playboy, and every woman that he sleeps with gets murdered. So there's a lot of suspicion in the town around him. And there's this attraction between our main character and him. He's just, this brooding gothic loner, and he's played by this actor who's awesome. Like, he's so charismatic. He's alluring yet creepy at the same time. I really like both these lead actors, and I thought their relationship was really interesting. The attraction between them, the romantic attraction, but also the fact that she doesn't trust him, isn't sure that he didn't kill these people, but is still drawn to him. It made for kind of a little bit of a demented romance, especially as it goes on. And I thought that was a pretty cool aspect of the movie. It's got a mystery to it as far as what is happening, who's killing these people, who's doing a lot of other really scary, horrible things in this movie. And the mystery kept me guessing throughout the movie. It didn't end up being terribly groundbreaking. Maybe you could say the reveal is a little disappointing, but the movie kept me guessing. In addition to those comparisons, the back of the Blu-ray said, I would also say Beauty and the Beast. Their romance reminded me a lot of Beauty and the Beast. And A Nightmare on Elm Street, actually. There is a character in this movie that really feels like a proto-Freddy Krueger for several different reasons, which I thought was really cool. This was really exciting because I love Hammer horror, but I've watched all the Gothic Hammer horror films. And this taught me that there are more movies from this period to discover, more Gothic horror movies from this period to love. And that's just an exciting thing. The movie's from 1970. It also has the English and Italian options. I, again, watched this dubbed in English. I thought it was really good. The restoration is imperfect, and there's a card that comes up at the beginning of the movie that tells you that the elements were damaged. They did the best that they could. So there's definitely some imperfections, some blurry images that it's too bad it's like that. Some scratches in the film that I kind of liked, kind of added to the feel of this movie. Just the uniqueness to it. So I ultimately don't have big complaints with the restoration. It is the most flawed restoration of the four movies. All the rest, I would say, look perfect, but it didn't really detract the movie for me. So I'm a huge fan of Scream of the Demon Lover. I saw from Letterboxd, a lot of other people are not, so keep that in mind. But for my taste, was super into it because I love Gothic romance, and it's a total Gothic romance film. Next up is The Seventh Grave. It's the last movie I watched in the set. Now, this one is from 1965, only in Italian and then with English subtitles. And it's in black and white. It's a black and white Gothic horror film. And it's a little bit of a cat and canary type of situation, like that Bob Hope movie, where a bunch of people gather at a spooky Gothic mansion in order to hear the reading of a will to find out what they inherited from some super rich, creepy guy. And some creepy things happen. There's a seance in the movie. There's a quote on the back that says, "It's full of little moments that make your heart beat faster, and the seance scene is powerfully creepy." So it's got a seance. Some people are getting murdered. There's some other creepy stuff going on. And I do want to point out that the cover really makes you think it's a vampire movie, not a vampire movie by any means. I want to tell you that so you don't go in expecting that and end up being disappointed. The best word I can use to describe this movie is low-key. It is a chill, low-key movie. Creepy things that happen, super low-key. The characters, nothing super interesting going on with them, super low-key. There's a romance in it. It's not that dramatic or, doesn't have much going on there. Super low-key. It's just a low-key, chill little movie. It's really short. It's only 77 minutes. And I liked it because I really like the atmosphere and the vibe of it. It does have a great Gothic atmosphere. There are scenes of a woman walking around in a nightgown with a candle along creaky hallways, and spooky things are happening. And that's just kind of catnip to me. I just kind of enjoy that overall vibe. It's not a great movie. I gave it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd just for you to know. It's not a movie. I don't know that I'll ever watch it again, but I enjoyed it enough but it's certainly not great. Next up is the first movie I watched from the set, and actually my least favorite. So I started off with the worst, and I kind of went uphill from there. This is The Monster of the Opera. This is like the last movie where it's from the 60s. It's 1964. Also only in Italian with English subtitles, and it's 84 minutes long. So it's interesting that these two are very much in a piece. These are the black and white Italian films, and these are the in-color movies that are dubbed in English. So I favored these. These are just clearly better movies with more resources behind them, and these are the little cheapies. What I enjoyed about this movie is it's a classic example of how the Italians during this period had no interest in what the rules of subgenres were, so this is just a wacky thing altogether. Now, the title clearly tells you it's a bit of a Phantom of the Opera type movie, and it kind of is, but the Phantom is a vampire, as it's pretty clear from the cover. Unlike with The Seventh Grave, it looks like a vampire, and it is a vampire. But he tries to kill you with a pitchfork. In addition to biting your neck, he can turn people into skeletons with his mind. Like, there's just so many things that this movie doesn't fit in any subgenre well. It's just kind of this weird mashup with no clear rules. It takes place at a opera house, I guess, kind of a theater. It's about a bunch of theater people who are trying to revive the opera and get a show going. And when I say this movie's about theater people, I mean it is about theater people. They are so over the top, so bombastic, so loud. I found the characters in this movie pretty annoying. You've got the main girl in this movie who's very low key. The rest of them are all so big, so dramatic, and they just kind of wear it on my nerves. It's very much got kind of a swinging 60s kind of a vibe to it, which I kind of liked. And there's some kind of spooky moments, and the ending is actually fairly cool. It builds to a decent climax. But overall, I found the movie pretty boring, and I rated it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd, and then later thinking about it, I couldn't really think of a good reason to keep that rating. I lowered it to 2 stars. It's pretty clearly my least favorite in the set. And there's the back right there. I'll show you all of the discs. Monster of the Opera, The Seventh Grave, Lady Frankenstein, and Scream of the Demon Lover. So that's my thoughts on this set. It's got 2 movies I love, and I'm so happy to have in my collection. It's got 2 movies that were kind of interesting curiosities, but not super great. Overall, in deciding if you want this, it really depends on how much you love Gothic horror, particularly Hammer horror. If you love Hammer horror, I'd say pick it up. If you don't so much and you haven't seen a lot of Hammer horror, watch Hammer movies first, and then maybe come over to this set. But if you picked it up, let me know in the comments and let me know your thoughts, or let me know your thoughts about this video. Thank you very much. With all that said, go have some spooky fun.